I am confused and afraid. I wonder what path I will take. I hear that there's only two ways out. I see mothers bury their sons. I want my mom to never feel that pain. I'm confused and afraid. I pretend all is fine. I feel like I'm suffocating. I touch nothing, so I believe all is fine. I worry that it isn't, though. I cry no more. I'm confused and afraid. I understand people believe I'm just a statistic. I say to them, I'm different. I dream of life getting easier. I try my best to make my dream true. I hope that it does. I'm confused and afraid. And so do you know what racism is?
Yes.
And what would you say racism is?
It's when people treat other people different because of their race.
I would define racism as a group of people having power and or influence to impact another race of people's lives.
What do you think about that? There's so many. Discrimination against a group of people who are usually minorities because of something they can't control. Not their personality, not the way they behave, not the way they've made you feel, simply just by the way that they look.
So, you know, in my years, I've encountered racism a number of times, and it's had a profound effect on my life in a number of areas. And I think one of my earliest remembrances of racism was, so I went to Catholic school, and I remember they were building the Fort Pitt Bridge and Fort Pitt and Fort Duquesne Bridge when I was a kid in elementary school, and I remember we were talking about something in school about what do you want to be or whatever, and I wanted to build bridges, right? And I didn't know exactly what the person was called, but I didn't want to be like the carpenter or anything. I wanted to be what I've found out now, an engineer, an architect, or something like that. And I remember the nun basically saying that I couldn't do that.
So what kind of school do you go to?
A private school.
Mm-hmm. And how many black students are in your class?
0.
So you're the only black person?
Yes.
And how does that feel sometimes?
I mean, I don't really think about it a lot. I guess it feels, it's not really like a feeling. It's just like, well, there's nobody else who kind of like looks like me. But I don't really feel bad because I do see other like kind of black people in my school, but just like I see them when I walk past the halls and stuff, but I just don't see them in my class.
Growing up, I had to train in a lot of areas where I was the only black child in the company, in the studio, things like that. So a lot of things didn't make sense to those who I was dancing with. That could be like things that I'd say, how I dressed, how I would act. It didn't make sense because they weren't used to that stuff. That wasn't in their daily, and that wasn't things they'd encounter. I'd also, face things about where I was placed in the dance. It wasn't always because of my skill level, but it was because I wasn't, let's say, a favorite. So once I went to a performing arts high school with more black dancers and more black teachers, I was exposed to a different type of culture with dance, and then was able to grow, and I grew so much faster and so much better because that environment was better for me and better for my art.
And do you think it's hard being black sometimes?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Why would you say that?
Because of racism and getting discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
No, I haven't really experienced that, but I do know like my mom has. So, I mean, I feel like as I get older, maybe it'll like happen, but I mean, I think that's one of the toughest parts about being black.
And what would you say makes racism in Pittsburgh different than other cities or other places?
I think racism in Pittsburgh is so clear cut. You can see it just by driving down the street. You'll see areas that have been gentrified, and you drive just maybe a block or two down, and you see others that have not. And you see the people who are inhabiting in these places. It's very in your face. You can, each neighborhood in Pittsburgh, the east side, the south side, west side, everything like that, north side, whenever you hear certain neighborhoods like Shady Side, Oakland, what do you think of? When you hear things like the north side, Perrysville, or East Liberty, what do you think of? Even just the difference between the east end, the east side, and East Liberty give very, very three different results that everybody knows about if you're from here.
So what makes racism different in Pittsburgh than other places? I think what makes it different is that it is a covert type racism, right? In Pittsburgh, you know, and the thing about history is that in our history books, well, when I was growing up, in our history books, it kind of made it like the South was racist, but the North wasn't. But growing up, it was like, that's not true because the North is just as racist as the South. And I think because of, you know, the abolition movements and all of those things that are generated in the North and all those things, and during the Civil Rights Movement, most of the folks that were going down south were from the North, who did not negate that there was racism in the North, right? And so, you know, in Pittsburgh, it is just, you know, underground rate, like it's happening, but no, it's not out front. Like people aren't walking, you know, well, you know, people have, but you know, people aren't, you know, putting it out there. I think during Donald Trump's presidency, people were more comfortable with putting racism and racist stuff out there, and I think we saw that. But Pittsburgh has a underground racism that is ever present. We just have to know that it is there, and know that you know, when we look at racism, you also got to look at how bills and legislations are created, and are those things created in a way that help blacks move forward or help blacks, you know, continue to stay in the position that they are in. And then I'll just take what's a hot topic now is cannabis, you know, the whole marijuana thing, right? So within that, they're going to make way for blacks to get their records expunged from these crimes that were related to marijuana or cannabis, but they're not making a way for black folks to get into the industry to make the dollars, right? And so that's the kind of subtle racism that, not subtle, but that's the types of racism that we do see that we really don't address. Those kinds of things, when people are making legislation that excludes you, right? And they make it like, oh, everybody can you know, participate, and no, everybody can't participate. And we know that everybody can't participate in that. And so that's just one example that I can give.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.